Hey everybody, it's Mr. Haskell, and I'm back with more things that you should know by being alive. And today I'm going to explore the shot heard round the world, the events leading up to the battles of Lexington and Concord, and ultimately the start of hostilities in the Revolutionary War in the American colonies. And to kind of set this up a little bit, the time frame we're here in would be the 1760s. We're at the tail end of the French and Indian War ends about 1763 or so. And as we go through the 1760s, we see a great deal of colonial frustration with British rule. And that frustration is going to reach a tipping point. And all this has to do with the fact that Parliament imposed a series of taxes, like the Stamp Act, the Townshend Act, and the Tea Act. Now, they needed to do this because they needed to refill the royal treasury because of the amount of money that had been spent fighting the French and Indian War and the 7 Years' War on the European continent. And they did they created all these pieces of legislation without colonial representation, which is where we get no taxation without representation, meaning without colonial representation and having these pieces of legislation passed, the colonies and the colonists who lived within them didn't have a voice. And they feel like, hey, we're full-fledged British citizens. Why don't we get a voice in a representative assembly like Parliament, especially the House of Commons? So we need a seat. We need a voice. If you're going to tax us, give us a voice. Give us the voice. We can work on the taxes. Now, this discontent swings us to Massachusetts. Now, Massachusetts becomes the heart of the resistance against this. After the Boston Tea Party in 1773, the Crown hits back hard with the coercive acts, which are known in the colonies as the Intolerable Acts. Boston Harbor gets shut down. Boston Harbor was a booming place, provided lots of jobs to a city of just under 20,000 people. So it's a hard blow. Local government gets suspended, and now we have British troops occupying the city. What do we have, like 10,000 British troops? That's pretty... Yeah. Anyway, in response, colonists start to develop a shadow government. They start stockpiling weapons. They start to train militias. And all of this is being done because they're preparing for what many feared would be coming, which is hostilities, violence. And so from 1773, by the time we get to 1775, General Thomas Gage, who becomes the military governor in Boston, he's the British commander in Boston, he fortifies the city. He has the troops, he has the soldiers, and he begins to make preparations for a rebellion. You can just kind of smell it. It's like a storm rolling in. And you have patriot leaders like John Hancock and Samuel Adams, who worked with local committees of safety to arm militias and stash weapons in towns like Concord. Lexington may have had a small store as well, but Concord was kind of like where they had a small armory. In addition, there was one further down the road in Gloucester, but that doesn't get involved here. Meanwhile, there's a Dr. Joseph Warren. He's a physician, he's a prominent revolutionary, and he plays a key role in gathering intelligence. He begins to organize riders. He starts paying attention to troop movements of the British regular army, and he begins to work quietly behind the scenes to coordinate the resistance. Both sides knew that conflict was coming. They're just waiting for the spark. And so on the night of April 18th, 1775, Dr. Warren got word that British troops were marching to Lexington and Concord. Their goal was to arrest Samuel Adams and John Hancock and seize weapons. Warren sends out two riders, Paul Revere and William Dawes, and their job is to sound an alarm. And the whole idea here is to let folks know that the British regulars will be on their way. The British are coming, they're all British. So why not the regulars are coming? The regulars are on their way, right? So Revere crosses the Charles River, and he waits for a lantern signal from the city. One if by land, two if by sea. Two lanterns appear in the Old North Church and the steeple, and British troops are now crossing the Charles River by water. Revere and Dawes rode through the night, warning the militias that the regulars are coming out. And villages were alerted, bells rang, and the militias began to assemble with the Minutemen. At dawn of April 19th, around 700 British troops reached Lexington, where about 70 armed colonists waited. Then, the moment that echoed through history, at least American history, right? A shot rings out. No one knows who fired it first, but it triggers a brief and deadly skirmish. When the smoke clears on the Lexington Green, we have 8 colonists that lay dead and several more are wounded. And the British then push on from Lexington on their way to Concord. Now, that mysterious shot becomes known as the shot heard round the world. It wasn't just the first of the war, it was the first of a global wave of revolutions. It's the beginning of the Revolutionary War, but also this marks the beginning of an American Revolution that goes beyond the hostilities of the Revolutionary War. It leads to other revolutions worldwide. Now, in Concord, British soldiers found fewer weapons than expected, but they met stiff resistance at the North Bridge. And this time, the militias didn't wait, they fired first. Now, as the British troops began to make their way back to Boston, local militias ambushed them repeatedly along the road on the way back. They were using trees and stone walls and the fields for cover. They did not meet them out in the open, as accustomed to the British regulars. Now, by the time the British had returned to Boston, they had suffered a little over 270 casualties, and the American losses were fewer than 100. So the siege of Boston begins that day. The militias follow the British regulars into the city. There's a narrow isthmus that connects the city to the mainland, the Boston Neck, and then from there, the militia basically build a barricade, and the British are now held up in the city under siege. And the War of Independence is officially underway. So, why does this matter? These weren't just isolated skirmishes. The events at Lexington and Concord were culminations of years of protest and planning and political courage. Paul Revere's ride just wasn't spontaneous. It was part of an organized warning system. The militias didn't form overnight. They were drilled and armed and ready. Now, we have people like Dr. Joseph Warren, who showed that revolutions aren't just fought with muskets. They're won with coordination, intelligence, and a bold belief in something better. Now, Shot Heard Round the World launched not just a war, but a global debate about liberty and representation and the right to self-government. Now, there's a lot of details that I have left out here. There were additional writers as well. Paul Revere gets captured. There's all kinds of stuff here. And I only have so much time to do this. So I'll try to create more things that you should know by being alive. If this helped you see the revolution a little more clearly, please like or comment and follow me for what I do here. Because April 19th, 1775 didn't just change a colony, it changed the whole world. So anyway, thanks for watching.